Hello friends, I am Nikita. I am a national instructor and a chess trainer. Welcome to our YouTube channel Chess Kaksha. In today's video, we are going to discuss a very popular opening, Berlin defense. It is considered as a very solid defense to Ruy Lopez. It is also called as Berlin Wall as it is very tough to crack. So let's take a look. This defense is best known for the famous endgame, or we can say queenless middle game, which occurs after e4, e5 and f3 and c6, bishop b5 and f6, castling and cross e4, d4 and d6, bishop cross c6, d cross c6, d cross e5 and f5, q cross d8 check and king cross d8. This variation became very popular worldwide after the great success by Vladimir Kramnik in the World Championship victory against Kasparov in 2000. So, after this, at first glance, the pawn structure gives white advantage. After all, white has a 4 to 3 majority on the king side. While white should find it difficult to create a passed pawn from his own queen side majority due to the double pawns. And another thing is, black king has lost the right to castle and prevents the black rook to castle. But there are some factors also that favors black. So what are that? White's advanced e5 pawn give control on f5 and d5 square to black. The e5 pawn you can see could become weakness if not well supported. Another advantage for black is that it has a bishop pair. So let's see some main ideas of Berlin defense. You can see, since black will find it difficult to connect rooks, so it's common for black to play a5 to e4 to activate a8 rook, or play a5 to a4 to activate a8 rook, or sometimes h5 to h4 to activate h8 rook. It could then go to h5, where it could attack the e5 pawn. Black normally develops his bishop on e6 and b4, often leaves the e7 square free for knight. White's plan will be to activate his king side pawn majority. Hence needs h3, which support g4. The f3 knight will move, so white can move pawn to f4. Normally, bishop goes to b2, but occasionally go to f4. But perhaps to g2 or h2 from where it can support white pawn advance. So these are the main idea for Berlin defense. Let's take some variations. You can see after castling, white move, black move and cross e4. What are the pros and cons for the black in taking the pawn on e4? The positive point of the capture is that white will get a pawn on e5. He won't be able to construct a perfect center with pawns on d4 and e4 any longer. Having reduced the white center in size and flexibility, black is in less danger. And his piece have more center square available to them. On the minus side, capturing on e4 and getting the knight away takes 3 moves. So the white pieces are getting out more quickly than the black pieces. Black is giving white pieces center by the opening lines. So after this, white will move d4. It is the white's strongest move. It is better than re1. White want to keep the initiative as well as regain his pawn. So what will black move here? Black will move bishop to e7. This is called the Rio de Janeiro variation. But why not grab a pawn with e cross d4 or n cross d4? So let's see what will happen if it take after d4, e cross d4. What will happen? After e cross d4, re1, f5, and cross d4, and cross d4, q cross d4, c6, and f3, Let's do a good endgame for white. After c cross b5, f cross e4, q b6. Black gets the queen off to avoid the frontal attack on his king. Then e cross f5 check, k f7, and now rather than bishop to e3, which is pretty well for white. Now let's take a look of if after d4, instead of b e7, it move e cross d4. Then what will happen? And cross d4. Then what will happen? Then after n cross d4, knight takes d4, e cross d4. Then re1, f5, and f3. White wins the piece here. So after bishop to e7, white will move his queen. Queen to e2. Can you guess why this might be preferred on re1? After re1, what will happen? And d6, bishop cross c6, d cross c6, d cross e5, and f5. In contrast to the normal Berlin endgame, Berlin has his bishop on e7 so that q cross d8 doesn't displace his king. He can recapture by b cross d8, therefore white plays q e2 instead of re1. So after this, black will move. After q e2, black will move and d6. Black saves his knight with gain of time by hitting the white bishop. Besides, he doesn't want to walk into a pin on c6. After b cross c6, b cross c6, then d cross e5 and b7. Why not to move to active square f5? So, well after, if knight move to f5, this active square, what will happen? White should play aggressively with queen to e4, then g6, and d4, and cross d4, q cross d4, castling bishop h6, re8, and c3, d6, e cross d6, bishop f6, q a4, c cross d6, q cross c6, and bishop f5, re e1. So after this and b7, you can see black's development has suffered. The bishop on c8 is still shut in and his knight is on a strange square. Though if given time it could go from c5 to c6 and where it would sit nicely in the center. Meanwhile, white has a serious space advantage. So there are some alternative also. If we move after nf6, instead of castling, what will happen if instead of castling after nf6, white move d3? This move has been played by Magnus Carlsen and other grandmasters to avoid the Berlin endgame because white simply wants to play a middle game where they can develop their pieces. So after d3, bishop to c5. After d3, d6 is better for winning. So after bishop to c5, c3, castling, d6. So both sides have equal and many options. So what will happen if after nf6, white replies with d4? If white replies with d4, which is considered most aggressive way to tackle the problem, white is trying to open up the game. Opening up the e file should prevent black's capture on e4. Here are three options after d4. Black can move n cross e4 or n cross d4 or e cross d4. We have discussed n cross e4, so let's see what will happen if it moves n cross e4. After n cross e4, white will castle and d6, then and d6 or e d5. So slight advantage here. And if it move and cross d4, and cross d4 has point. Now black can allow c7 to c6 and prevent white from getting superior pawn structure by taking on c6. So what will happen? And cross d4, c6, c6, or it can also move e cross d4. So it is very difficult to find any advantage for white here. So these are the alternative for giving response to nf6. So these are all about Berlin defense. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you enjoy, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.